Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Allegiant Health, Bass and Associates, and Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This with Carol Schrader, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Dell and Lou Ann Weber Fine Arts Building, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome to the Fine Arts Center at UNO. A little change of pace. Usually we're in the Student Center, but there's a fine offering in the theater going on about now that if you'd like to bop out to UNO, you could take in. We're going to perform here ourselves in a little milder way than you would see if you were coming to see The Three Sisters by Anton Chekhov, which will be presented to the public the 2nd and 3rd of April and the 7th through the 10th. And if you're not familiar with Chekhov, specifically The Three Sisters, it's the story of an aristocratic family and some hangers-on who sort of go through life in a funny way, in a very painful way, and they sort of lead themselves as they are led into the Russian Revolution and kind of sink into oblivion. It's directed by Doug Patterson, and you really ought to take it in if you can. My guest today is in a different form of the arts. He's a UNO alumni. Mike Hill, welcome.
Thank you.
His face may not be familiar to you because what he does is put faces and places and scenes in movie theaters around the country. He is a motion picture editor, and we're very pleased to have you. And it's my first Academy Award winner I've ever interviewed. I think. But anyway, he won an Oscar for Apollo 13. A fantastic movie, which I wish I had seen in the theater. I only saw it in the little box at home.
Yeah, it would have been better in the theater, but...
And it didn't even have sex in it. And it was very popular. I mean, you almost have, if you're an action movie, which that was, although it was sort of a historical biopic.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of action. And the story of how you got into this is the one that fascinates me. You're a UNO alum, you were a criminal justice major?
Criminal justice, right. Not the usual way to go for a film editor. Well, criminal justice I kind of stumbled into also.
You really didn't know what you wanted to
do?
do?
No, I didn't know. I was in journalism for a while. I had a couple different majors until criminal justice kind of just happened somehow. They had a pretty good department here.
They still do.
And so I enjoyed the courses and I stuck with it, graduated with the degree, but I had no clue what to do with it.
Now, while you were a student here, you had a part-time job, as many UNO students do.
Right. I was at Channel 6, which was CBS at that time. And I was in a little room splicing commercials together. From 5
You got the glue, you got the little scraper.
The little scraper, everything, right. And that was my first taste of editing, which really, it wasn't editing, but it was, it was just splicing. But at least it gave me the job title assistant editor, which may have helped me later, I don't know. But I was in that room, 5 hours a night, splicing, and I did it for 4 years, all through school.
So you learned that you could get over claustrophobia working in a small area, so that was a good thing.
That was good training, too. So anyway, when I left UNO, I wasn't quite sure what to do, but I wanted to go somewhere. I wanted to get out of Nebraska. So turns out California, I started thinking maybe I could work in the corrections field because I liked it, and I liked all the courses I took in that. Had an interesting professor here named Jim Kane who kind of I got interested through him. So I thought, well, why don't I try working in a prison? It was a bizarre thing. I don't know. I mean, I like prison movies, maybe, is what it was.
Gets back to the movies.
So California had the best pay, which really wasn't much, even California was low too, but it was better than most states. So I went out there and applied and ended up getting a job at Chino State Prison. And I wanted to be a counselor. Didn't want to be a guard, but you had to be a guard for about a year probation period. And then you work midnight to 8, and you kind of get the sense of what it's like to work in a prison. Well, after 4 months, that was enough for me, and I knew that wasn't my calling.
Okay, so how old are you about this?
I'm right out of, well, I was 22.
Okay.
22. So I quit after about 4 months, and since I was in the LA area, it's not far from LA, I went into Hollywood, and having always been a movie buff, I thought maybe I can get in the film business somehow. So with the film editing thing in the back of my head, you know, thinking that's what I did at, you know, part-time, I used that as my, I went to the Film Editors Guild first. I also went to sound, camera, all these different unions, and filled out a little application. And they all kind of laughed, said sure, because people just don't get in that way very often. But in 1973, which was in the summer of '73, for some reason it was really busy that time, and all the people in the unions were working, so they could bring more people in. So I got a call one day from the union saying to go to Paramount Studios and see the head of the editing department, and they had 2 openings for apprentices, and I got in. And the funny thing about that is that I was up against two other guys who were from UCLA Film. One was UCLA, one was USC Film School.
And those are some of the biggies. I mean, those are California,
big.
those are
big. And they didn't want them. They wanted me. I was this guy who knew nothing from the Midwest, and that's what.
They wanted to whip you around and teach them
Well,
their
this guy,
way.
Jim Blakely, was the guy, was the head of the department, and he told me later, about a year later, that the reason he picked me was that I knew nothing. He thought I would seem like a nice guy. I was from the Midwest. He likes that for some reason. He isn't from the Midwest, but he likes people from there. And that was why he gave me the job.
So what'd you do then? I mean,
well, for about 2 or 3 years, I was 2 years I was in film shipping, which was just lugging film around, and I wasn't learning anything except how to carry film cans. But then I met a couple assistant editors who were working at the studio, and they said, if you want to learn, you know, if you want to be an editor someday, and you want to be even an assistant editor, you got to start learning how to do what we do. The studio has no program to teach. You can just stay in film shipping your whole life.
all right,
if you
so
want.
how did you get your hands on it?
This one guy, who was an assistant on Mannix, he showed me how to sync up dailies, which was the first thing you have to learn. When the film comes in each day from the shoot, the previous day, you have to sync up the picture and sound together on this sync block, and you reel it through, and you get all the scenes, the sound in sync with the, you know, on all the different takes, and then they look at them in dailies in the theater that afternoon. So every morning I'd sync dailies.
To see if what they thought they got is what they got.
Right, they'd see what, yeah. And so I did that for a number of months on different shows. They would put me on whatever show they needed some help on. Mannix, Love American Style, The Brady Bunch.
Oh, wow, that's taking us back.
That goes back. And so that's how I learned how to do that. And you learn to be really fast. I mean, the speed is the utmost in that job. So you learn, and if you're good enough, then they keep you around. So then, slowly but surely, I worked my way into a feature film. I was just lucky to be in the right spot. That's the whole story of this thing, is being in the right spot. I mean, that's how it's gone all through this thing, you know, from going out to Chino all the way. But the Last Tycoon, I don't know if you ever saw that picture. Elia Kazan, it was his last film, and De Niro was young. He was the lead. He had just done The Godfather 2, and he wasn't that well known yet. And so I sunk the dailies on that, and then they were editing in New York, so I never even met the editor. I was the only person in the editorial staff in Hollywood, you know, working on that film. So I'd sync him up and then send him to New York, and the editor would cut him there. But Kazan was, you know, I would see him every night. I would run the dailies with him, and he actually let me cut a scene that he was going to reshoot. So that was my first taste of editing. And he gave me a nice critique, and it was terrible. I mean, I stayed up all night working on this scene, and it was such a simple it was just a little dialogue scene between 2 actors. But I cut, you know, way too quick. On every single line I would cut to the person saying it, and because I didn't know what I was doing. But he gave me a lot of nice, I mean, he was real nice about it, and he was very encouraging. And so that was kind of, I was so excited at that time that, you know, I couldn't believe that I was actually working with Elia Kazan. And it was, yeah, you know, it was like a dream. And so then from there, I worked on some other pictures, and eventually got in with Ron Howard through Happy Days, because I'd worked on some of those too. I didn't know Ron at that time, but This other guy, Dan Hanley, who's the co-editor on most of our movies with me, he, on all of them actually, he knew Ron because he had worked on all of these Happy Days things and Laverne and Shirley. And so Ron, and he worked on Ron's TV movies that he had directed in the late 70s. There were 3 of them. So that's how I got on Night Shift in 1982, was through Dan, because they needed another assistant. And we immediately moved up to editor because the editor had a stroke right before filming began, and we were just thrown in. They didn't even have anybody else to cut the film. They could have brought in a big-time editor if the studio wanted to.
Well, no offense, but Night
Ron,
Shift is not what I would call a piece of cinematic art. I mean,
no, it's not.
I mean, if you have to learn
that was a great thing
on a movie, it's
right.
not like you're given War and Peace, you know, or you know,
I was still
Gone with the Wind to edit.
Right, and I was still relatively young. I wasn't married, and I could just stay up all night and thrash through it. I really didn't. I knew I'd had enough experience editing to where I knew the techniques. I knew the technical aspects of it, but this was a real learning experience. And Ron was the greatest guy to have in that regard because he's so patient and he's so understanding. And you know, we just worked through it, and it was an amazing break.
And then boom, boom, boom. I'm going to go through from Night Shift to Splash, Cocoon, Gung Ho, Armed and Dangerous, Willow, Pet Cemetery, Parenthood, Problem Child, Backdraft, Far and Away, What's Love Got to Do with It, The Paper, Apollo 13, Ransom. Now Ed TV,
yeah.
which is hysterical. Is hysterical. I mean, I oxygenated my body to the max, laughing.
Well, good. The audiences seem to like it. If we can get them in the theater.
Past the fact that it's not another Truman Show.
Yeah. That seems to be a little bit of a problem.
In fact, when I talked to you on the phone, I said, well, you know, I saw the Truman Show. And he goes, oh, no, I hope people aren't going to think that. No. I said, no, I'll see the movie.
I thought we might have a problem. We all did because we were right in the middle of shooting Ed TV when the Truman Show came out. And I asked Ron, I said, did you know about this? And he said, not really. I mean, I'd heard about it, but I didn't know much about it. It wasn't like we copied it or anything like
No.
that. The writers, you know, came up with their idea independent of the Truman Show.
Well, it's a funny movie. It will make it. It's a feel-good movie, but not in the way Truman was. But the 3 things it has in common is that it's about a TV show about a young man, and you root for the guy, right. and it's kind of about it's more about people's voyeurism and celebrity.
Yeah.
You know what that phenomenon that. Yeah. Is fascinating and very real.
And how it can destroy your personal life, your family.
If you let it, which is
right.
what it's all about. I think the thing that we all, you know, we watch the Academy Awards and they go, best film editing. And we go, okay, yeah, that's where they put the pieces of the film together. Yeah, and that's important.
Why should it get an award?
Well, no, not that so much, because I think anyone that's seen enough movies, and we've grown up with movies. We've all seen a lot of movies. It's not like, you know, the few good movies you saw when you were a kid, when my mom grew up, that were real. I mean, we have such a variety of movies, the action movie and the serious movie and the drama. I mean, and we watch TV our whole lives. So it's not like we don't have a sense how things go together.
Yeah, but people always say to me, so you're an editor. Oh, you take the bad stuff out. You get rid of the bad stuff. That's what they think. And I say, well, yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah, that's the stuff that ends up on the proverbial cutting room floor.
That's part of it.
But the one question I was dying to ask you is that you mentioned how you would do the dailies on Kazan's movie,
yeah.
and he was around there, and you'd ship the stuff back to
yeah.
New York where the actual editors were.
Yeah.
Well, then I get a sense of an editor in a room cut off from the creative process.
No.
So kind of give me a feel for when you come on board.
Okay, well, we start from day one of the shoot. And, you know, the director usually shoots, gets a scene completed a day. On a feature film, on the average, he would complete a scene in 1 day, maybe 2 days. So we have the material in a couple of days to edit a scene. So we are editing right along with the shooting, and then Ron comes in on weekends to look at the scenes that have been cut together. So so that by the time the shooting is done, we just about have the film completely assembled in a pretty long form, much longer than you'll.
Right, and
it'll
then
end
you
up.
get down to the serious
Then we get down to the
tightening
serious
it up.
whittling and shaping and switching scenes and trying all kinds of stuff.
But you see it being shot?
I don't go to the set
Right, so-
very often, but I see Ron at night when we go to dailies, and then he gives us his notes about which takes he likes. He might give us an idea of how he wants to approach a scene, but he pretty much leaves us on our own to decide how to cut the scene.
So I always had this feeling that the director somewhere along the line was sitting not necessarily over your shoulder, but it was, and I suppose some directors more than others are more control freaks.
Oh yeah, Ron is not. He doesn't like the editing room that much. He gets bored by it, which is good. I like that.
I like that in a director.
We don't really see him too much until we get back to Connecticut, where we always end up because he lives back there. We have editing rooms back there.
And that's where the fine tuning.
That's where he sits with us. He comes in the morning usually and sits with us for a few hours and gives us his notes. He looks at a scene, gives us notes, he leaves, or he gets on the phone. He's on the phone a lot. And then we go ahead and we work it out. So I'll work on a scene that he's, from the morning when he's with me, then the whole afternoon I'm on my own, trying to fix it or change it. And that's pretty much how it goes for about 6 months.
Now the music is all put in afterward.
After the,
So you don't, I mean, and since music has become in many movies such a large part of it, at least,
Yeah.
and part of the experience that we see in the theater, not that the pictures and the words and the acting isn't enough to give you, but
well, see, we play with music a lot, temporary tracks.
just stuff from a shelf.
Well, we have all the
or do you
CDs
have-
from all the soundtracks. We keep them current. So we can pull anything we want and we can use it for our own
Just to give
purposes.
you, like,
And we
this is
need-
the kind
yeah.
of music that's going to go here. This
to
is
see
the
what
feel.
works. Yeah, we find stuff we think works. And then we use it in our screenings. So we have test screenings. We do about 5 or 6 where we bring in big audiences in actual theaters in New Jersey or wherever. We have to go to New Jersey a lot. It's kind of our lucky place. They always like us there. So we do the screenings, and then we kind of learn how the film's working that way. And so the music, the music that we put in that we really like, we encourage the composer to not copy it, but
This is the
to
feel
keep
we
the
want.
tone of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, we like the strings. I mean, kind of like that strings thing going on,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and
Yeah.
and they're generally pretty compliant.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
because that's what they're
wanna
paid to do.
Yeah, they don't have much time to do their job either, so they need some.
Need some guidance.
help,
They're not
yeah.
starting everything from
No.
scratch. Well, what do you have the help of computers now, so you can sort of do visual test runs on shots, so that you can see how they all stack up, how they go.
Well, we've only had the computers for the last 2 movies. Apollo was done on the old-fashioned way, splicing, flatbed machine with the film running through, and it seems like the Stone Age to me now. I would never want to go back to that. The computers have made my life a lot easier. The hours have been reduced because there's just so much physical loading and unloading in the old way. You take up so much time on just physical things that you shouldn't have to worry about.
So now you're a Oscar-winning film director, and I guess that you just keep editing films as they come. You've got one that you've got to just jump into pretty soon, right?
Well, yeah, at the end of the summer.
Okay. What's it like? You work like crazy, and then you're.
Then I'm home and I relax and take my daughter to school and walk the dog and play golf and wait for the next one to start.
And that's the Grinch Who Stole Christmas.
How the Grinch Stole
How
Christmas.
the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yeah.
And Jim Carrey is going to be.
Jim
I
Carrey's
take
the
it the Grinch.
Yeah, he is. I don't know who else is going to be in it yet, but he's the reason it's being made, really. I mean, he wanted to be the Grinch. He pretty much sold the Widow Seuss on the whole idea.
Well, he's got the contortable face.
Oh, yeah.
That can be the. I mean, that's a caricature of a caricature of a character.
Oh, yeah. And it's going to be very funny. I just finished the script, and it's pretty funny. And he's going to make it even more. I mean, just trying to imagine how he would do it makes it even funnier to think about.
Okay, let's talk about a guy that is working in something that we consider probably the glitziest profession, even though you're not, on a day-to-day, you're not doing a glitzy kind of job, but the glitziest profession in the world. And he comes back and he says, oh, I'm just going to have my home base here in Omaha.
Yeah.
Why'd you come back?
Well, my wife, Leanne.
You wanted to get away, remember?
Well, the way it worked out, it was my wife's idea originally to not live in L.A. She was pregnant. We'd been married about a year, and we were.
She's not from here.
She's from Michigan, but I met her in Los Angeles when I was working on Cocoon. She was an NBC publicist, and we met through a mutual friend. Well, one of the writers of Cocoon. She wanted to see what the editing room was like. She wanted to think. She was thinking about getting out of publicity, and she wanted to try editing. Was one thing she was thinking about. So she came. He asked me if she could come and check it out, and so I said sure.
When you're taking this nice, petite, attractive, because Leanne is a beautiful woman, into the editing, I can see.
Well,
this
I didn't know when I first heard her on the answering machine. She sounded like an old librarian. I didn't know, and when she showed up, it was a surprise. It was a nice surprise. But yes, so things,
Yeah.
happened.
But she wanted to come back here.
She did. Well, not here specifically. We wanted to move out of L.A. We thought about Denver. We have some friends there. We thought about Santa Fe. She had a sister there at the time. Seattle, I had some friends. So we were thinking about places like that. Omaha really wasn't on the list originally, but we came back for a visit to see my mom, and we saw a house for sale. We were driving around. We saw a house for sale, and we kind of liked the look of it, and we thought, hey, maybe Omaha would be. Maybe we could try it. So we did, and we've been here 10 years now, or 11 actually now.
When you think of the timings, chance timings of your life and getting into this, I mean, how would you counsel somebody that says, I want to be a film editor, or I want to be in one of the technical, or, I mean, they're all artistic in a sense, but I mean, not the starring stuff.
I get calls all the time.
I bet you do.
Especially since the Oscar, and the articles in the paper, and from a lot of young kids who are studying film or want to be in film. I really don't know what to tell them other than to do what I did, to go out there and just put your foot into every door and see what you can do. I didn't know anybody, and so I don't know I don't know how to tell them to do anything else than what I did. There's a lot of nepotism out there, which makes it tough, but it's possible.
Now you just turned 50, and we keep reading that every aspect of the film and television industry is a young person's industry. I mean, you've got to do it when you're young, or do you not try at all? Unless, do you have to be the 22, 23-year-old that you were?
To get in, well, it helps. The thing is, once you're in, and especially in editing, editors can hang around a long time. There's a lot of old timers still cutting, but especially now with a lot of young producers and directors, they're looking for young people. So
malleable people.
well,
no, in the sense of
talented
from a
people,
skill, right?
But yeah, I mean they're looking for young blood, and so that's an advantage. I mean, if a person has enough gumption to go out there and give it a shot, something could happen.
What is Apollo 13 the favorite movie so far of what you've edited?
It's my favorite because because of the Oscar, of course. My favorite ones. I have a warm spot for Cocoon,
which was a fantastic movie.
I think it was the best film we did for a long time. Parenthood, a lot of people like that film, and The Paper was one I really enjoyed.
I didn't see that one.
About a tabloid newspaper in New York, Michael Keaton. It's a good. You should rent it.
Oh, I will. I will. Do you have in mind? I mean, you're doing basically about a movie every 14, 15 months. The way it kind of shakes out on average.
Well, yeah, but if you'll notice, I've got about a 3-year gap there between Ransom and MTV. I'm slowing down.
Is that what you want?
Well, Ron is slowing down. I'm pretty much tied to his train.
You're hooked to his star, yeah.
And I like it. I mean, I like working with him. So I'm not looking to branch out and find other directors. I get a lot of scripts sent to me, but most of them aren't very good, and they're not enticing enough to get me to move away from Ron.
When you get to this point in your life and you've got the credentials, do you stay with somebody, or do you say, and then I get to a point where that person either doesn't want to direct anymore, doesn't get the backing and the scripts, then I'm too old because the young pups are coming up and they've got their young pup editors, and I mean, how do you, when you look ahead, where do you kind of?
You know, I don't look ahead too much. The way I look at it is Ron's younger than I am.
Oh, that's a good thing.
And I can't imagine him not making films forever. It's just a matter of when I'm going to want to quit, I think. But I don't think about it too much. I just figure whatever happens, happens. I figure if something disastrous happened and I couldn't work with Ron anymore, if he got sick of me or whatever, I could always find jobs on somebody's film. Doesn't hurt to have an Academy Award and
No.
to have that resume. So it's not something I worry about too much. Some editors do have those worries because they don't have quite the record, or they always have to go with a different director, because some directors don't keep the same people just because they don't want to. They like to get new editors each time. Most directors do like to keep the same ones if they really like them.
Okay, we just have a couple of minutes
Yeah.
left. If you're talking to the moviegoer that watches your film or anyone else,
Yeah.
and you say, I want you to notice the editing, but I don't. I mean, what would you say to them about editing as a watcher?
I would say that it's almost an invisible thing. It should be, if it's done right. But to keep in mind that the editor really controls the entire film. He controls the actors' performances. He could destroy an actor's performance if he wanted to. But, you know, everything you see it looks like a film because of what the editor did. Everything else, it's all just a bunch of pieces if we don't shape it and
You're the last hand that really
manipulate it.
touches it in a
Yeah.
sense. And the pace and the
Everything.
excitement, or the
everything that makes a film work is the editor's, the ultimate responsibility falls on our lap. I mean, the actors have to perform, of course, and the writing has to be there, but the editor has to make it all happen in the end.
Well, EdTV is his current offering, and I guarantee you will enjoy it. Mike Hill, I want to thank you for coming back to
Thank you.
UNO once again and
Thank
telling
you.
us a little bit about yourselves. You're
pleasure.
a nice guy.
Well, thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Allegiant Health and Bass & Associates.